Good morning. This is Dylan Giovanni with Behind the Markets. Happy Thursday. Today is Thursday, August 6th, and today I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why a SpaceX Tesla merger may be a good idea after SpaceX reported its earnings. So first of all, let me talk about the earnings for those of you who own SpaceX stocks. We saw the results. I have my notes here. Revenue was $7.8 billion, up 92% from $4.1 billion. Great results. Quarterly loss of $541 million, which is an improvement of $467 million. And even more importantly, for those of us who care about cash flow when we buy an actual business, we saw EBITDA of $3.5 billion, up 191%. Well, he uses an adjusted EBITDA figure, which you always learn when you start working on Wall Street is you have to kind of readjust it to make it real. So look, everything was good in the business. I mean, Starlink stole the show. Starlink is growing. So user base is growing, millions and millions of new people added. The downside to Starlink's growth is that their ARPU, their ARPU, their average revenue per user, was notably down from the mid-80s per person to 60s per person. Remember something, if you're making $60 per person per year or per month, basically what that means is that it costs you can only spend less to get the customer. So basically, you have to pay money to get the customer, your customer acquisition cost, then you sell them your Starlink product. And so we've seen that go down, the amount they're able to charge people, which means they're going into a wider market. But look, the stock came out with decent results, but it sold off due to huge capital spending. It's the same reason other things have been selling off on the Mag 7. They said that they're going to expect for the quarter $18.4 billion in CapEx, of which $15.8 billion, most of it, was for AI compute. They're building that AI infrastructure, that 5-layer cake that we talked to you about before. And it just goes to show you, really, there's about $3 billion there for the actual rocket side of the business, but about $15.8 billion there is for AI compute. You're seeing the same issue as SpaceX tries to gear up and compete with much bigger, much more well-funded competitors, Google, Amazon, Apple, certainly Microsoft, in that race for AI compute. And it's funny, again, if you would have told me a year ago that SpaceX and Tesla might be a merger, I would have laughed you off out of my face, basically. But, the more I think about it, the more I think that this might be a better idea after all. And I have 3 reasons why, after these earnings, SpaceX Tesla might be a pretty good idea. I mean, first, just to look at the businesses, both of these, if you look at the combined business here, well, first of all, in 2025, Tesla generated roughly 5 times as much revenue as SpaceX did, led by its electric vehicle business, $94.8 billion in revenue. Of that, the energy and storage business is $12.7 billion, 13%. So we're talking $80 billion plus in revenue selling electric cars, where SpaceX generated $18.6 billion. Space did about $4 billion, 22%. Starlink is $11 billion, even though those numbers are going to go up based on these new reports, 61% in AI, Grok, and all these other things, XAI, $3.2 billion. But look, at the end of the day, the first reason that a combined company might make sense here is at root, both companies are doing the same thing. Remember your Marcus Aurelius. What is the nature of the thing? The nature of the thing is that both of these companies are moving complex machines, and their desire is to move them automatically, basically. Well, like robots, flying robots, driving cars, self-driving cars, Optimus robots, flying rockets. They could do this stuff basically automatically. So look, I mean, Musk has said, and he said it, a million times already on Tesla. And basically, if you look at how the Tesla board gave him the $1 trillion pay package, they agreed to that. What it says is it basically tells you the direction he's pushing. They're paying him based on building humanoid robots and robotaxis. That's where they really see the future of this thing. 2/3 of the business is going to be humanoid robots and robotaxis. So it's not an electric car company anymore as it used to be. His compensation package is based on humanoid robots and robotaxis. That's where he got that $1 trillion. that was such a big deal almost a year ago, maybe 7, 8 months ago. So look, that is the game for Elon Musk. So what is the nature of the thing? He's trying to create robot taxis, human robots, and of course, SpaceX is trying to do flying robots. So basically, all of that needs very, very similar infrastructure. You need chips, you need data centers, you need electricity, you might need data centers in space. Every time I say that, data centers in space, I think of those old movies. But perhaps the second reason is the most important benefit for investors in both companies is that a merger is going to unite two businesses that are run by the same person. And a lot of these people work together already. I mean, Musk moves engineers and executives between these companies freely, and they share technology. For example, you think about Grok's models. I mean, part of SpaceX's XAI segment are now available to Tesla drivers in their cars. So a merger would actually resolve any concerns that shareholders might have about business dealings between the two companies and whether those deals are fair to each company. And you know what? That's a pretty tricky concern, because if I'm a Tesla bull and a Tesla investor, and I see that all the executives that I had, Tesla's going down in their business internationally, let's say, and I see that all the executives in Tesla have been working to make SpaceX a big success, I'd be like, well, wait a minute, what about us? I'd be a little irritated. So yeah, I understand the idea of merging that. That can create a whole bunch of lawsuits. And the plaintiff's bar, there are lawyers all over the world who are looking for that kind of stuff. And third, finally, the last reason is valuation. Look, since SpaceX has come public, the stock has dropped 20% from its IPO price. I mean, obviously a lot more from the price it hit on the day, the high, but it's dropped about 24% from its offering price, which reduces its market cap to about 1.5 trillion, which is just a little bit above Tesla's at 1.3 trillion. So look, both companies, they trade at similar ranges, and both companies, surprisingly, trade at broadly similar price forward PE multiples. SpaceX at 190 times and Tesla at about 167 times. And that's according to S&P Global Market Intelligence. So that makes the combination easier than if SpaceX was valued at what it was valued at the first day. Basically, you're talking here almost about a merger of equals, where basically you could figure out a way to get both of these companies basically at similar market caps. Now, there was a report out last week that Musk vehemently denied, saying that he was looking to offload his China operations because, again, you can't sell cars in China and have access to U.S. government military contracts. So, he vehemently denied, called it fake news. But friends of mine who are pretty well sourced know that he has actually felt out or sounded out some people. That's the word out there. I don't have it on firsthand information, but I have it on pretty good secondhand information, but who knows? So, if I were trying to merge these two companies, Lord knows I'd be trying to see, what if the U.S. and China got into a conflict? I'd have to dump that car business in China. I could not handle U.S. government contracts, the sensitivity there, while having that kind of business in China. He says it's fake news. Who knows, right? Maybe he's saying, maybe what's fake news is that I didn't say I want to sell it. I just was feeling people out, and maybe he's splitting hairs there. Anyway, I think after these earnings, which were pretty good, but again, the same issue that these hyperscalers are facing, a lot of them, like Meta, where's the return on this big investment? But he seems to be in the Mark Zuckerberg camp saying, trust me, we'll get it. And you know what? People who are Elon believers are going to keep trusting him. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you tomorrow.